Welcome back. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat for the second consecutive day to register protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. In a statement, Foreign Office spokesperson Aisha Farooqi said the Indian forces resorted to unprovoked firing at Chirikot sector on 20th May. Farooqi said unprovoked by Indian troops resulted in serious injuries to an innocent civilian. She said the Indian forces along the LOC and the working boundary have continuously been targeting civilian populated areas. The spokesperson said India has so far committed 1,102 ceasefire violations this year. India was told to respect the 2003 ceasefire understanding between the two countries. The Indian military looted burnt houses and used civilians as human shields during an operation in Srinagar. The occupation troops martyred top freedom fighter Junaid Sehrai and his aide during the operation on Tuesday. Locals say the army forced them to shoot videos inside of houses to see whether Sehrai is inside or not. The civilians said troops beat them repeatedly and took them to the front during a 15-hour-long operation. The women told media after the operation, military burned down their houses and took all of their savings and costly belongings. They also told media paramilitary forces destroyed 22 houses completely during and after the operation. The civilians said they have started local fundraising for rehabilitation because India will not help them. Pakistan's envoy to the UN, Munir Akram, says Muslims in India and occupied Kashmir are in grave danger. During a meeting of OIC, Akram said the ruling party wants to remove Islamic history from India. The envoy said expatriate Hindu extremists actively promoted Islamophobia agenda and even insulted their host countries. He said, as the world is battling COVID-19, New Delhi has secretly allowed non-natives inside the occupied valley. He said through the new domicile law, India is planning to turn the valley into a Hindu majority region from a Muslim majority area. The other envoys supported Pakistan's proposal and need for a concerted OIC position on Islamophobia at the United Nations. Now, Pakistan's COVID-19 death toll has risen to 1,017 as the country recorded 32 new deaths since yesterday. The Health Ministry says nearly 2,200 new cases were reported, bringing the total to over 48,000. The ministry said 14,155 patients of coronavirus have recovered so far. It said over 17,300 infections were recorded in Punjab, nearly 19,000 in Sindh, and more than 6,800 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Meanwhile, Balochistan has reported almost 3,000 cases and the capital, Islamabad, 1,235. Meanwhile, the UN and Pakistan have launched a cash assistance program for refugee families hit hard by the deadly virus. Under the program, 36,000 families will receive rupees 12,000 each for 4 months. The World Health Organization has reported the highest single-day rise in global coronavirus cases as over 100,000 tested positive. Worldwide, the infections have surpassed 5 million, while the death count has crossed 328,000. In the U.S., more than 1,500 people have died in the past 24 hours, raising the total to over 93,000. Further details in this report.
Despite hundreds of deaths every day in the US, all 50 American states have partially reopened after a 2-month shutdown. The outbreak is on a sharp rise in Latin America as Brazil has recorded 888 deaths and Mexico registered 424 in a single day. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has warned that the pandemic is a long way from being over.
In the last 24 hours, there have been 106,000 cases reported to WHO, the most in a single day since the outbreak began. Almost 2/3 of these cases were reported in just 4 countries.
The pandemic is threatening to ruin tourism industry vital to many countries' economy worldwide. New Zealand wants employers to consider switching to a 4-day work week to promote tourism in the country. Greece has also announced to kick off its tourist season next month with international charter flights resuming in July.
Τουριστική περίοδος ξεκινά 15 Ιουνίου.
The tourism season will begin on June 15th, a date on which seasonal hotels will be able to open, and gradually from July 1st, direct international flights will begin towards tourism destinations. There will be sample testing of our visitors, and health and hygienic protocols will be adhered, which will not cast a shadow on our bright sun nor the natural beauty of Greece.
China's central city of Wuhan, where the pandemic originated, has issued a total ban on the hunting, breeding and human consumption of wild animals. The mainland has reported only 2 new coronavirus cases, including one imported case.
Now, the Taliban say any mechanism other than the Doha deal will further impede the already harmed Afghan peace process. In a meeting with U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad in Doha, the group's leaders discussed the implementation of the pact. Spokesperson Suhail Shaheen says the Taliban told Khalilzad that further delay will only make matters worse. Khalilzad also met President Ashraf Ghani and High Council for National Reconciliation head Abdullah Abdullah in Kabul. The U.S. envoy said violence by all sides must fall as innocent Afghans have borne far too much in the war. He said all sides are responsible for the implementation of the Doha deal, including the prisoner releases by the Afghan government and the Taliban. The U.S. envoy to South Asia, Alice Wells, has praised Pakistan for its solid cooperation for peace in Afghanistan. In an online media briefing, Wells reflected on U.S. policies in the region during the past 3 years. The envoy said the U.S. has seen strong collaboration between Khalilzad and Pakistani leadership to bring the Taliban on negotiation table. She said improvement for a stronger U.S.-Pakistan partnership is premised on ability to work together constructively to advance peace. Answering a question, Wells said it is important for India to be close to Taliban as part of its traditional ties with Kabul. The envoy said the U.S. is seeking to have a political settlement, seeing the Taliban as part of government structure in Afghanistan. Prime Minister KP Oli says people entering Nepal illegally through India are spreading COVID-19 in the country. The ties between the countries have been strained since New Delhi inaugurated a road on land claimed by Kathmandu. In a parliament speech, Oli said the virus from India looks more lethal than Chinese and Italian. The Prime Minister said it has become very difficult to contain coronavirus due to the flow of people from outside. Discussing disputed land, he said Nepal will bring back the Kalapani, Lipimandura and Lipekhle areas at any cost. Recently, Nepal endorsed a new political map incorporating 3 regions which India claims its own. China has accused India of trespassing on the line of actual control between the 2 countries in Sikkim and Ladakh. Beijing says New Delhi is attempting to unilaterally change the status on the demarcation line. In a statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said the Indian Army is crossing into its territory and blocking its patrols. It said they crossed the western section of the Sino-Indian border and the Sikkim section to enter China. The ministry said the matter had been taken up with India, asking for immediate withdrawal of personnel across the line. Sikkim's Nakula Pass is one of 4 areas that had seen aggressive action between the Chinese and Indian troops since mid-April this year. China has slammed the U.S. for its decision to congratulate Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen on her inauguration. The Foreign Ministry said U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has seriously damaged the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait. The ministry spokesperson said Beijing will take necessary measures and Washington must bear the consequences. In a speech after being sworn in for her second and final term in office, Tsai said relations between Taiwan and China had reached a turning point. Tsai and her Democratic Progressive Party won January's presidential and parliamentary elections by a landslide, vowing to stand up to China. While China claims Taiwan as its own and says it will be brought under Beijing's control by force if needed. China cut off formal talks with Taiwan in 2016 after Tsai first won the election. The U.S. has approved a $180 million sale of heavyweight torpedoes to Taiwan. The State Department said proposed weapons sale serves the U.S. national, economic and security interests. It said sale will also help improve security of recipient and assist in maintaining political stability, military balance and economic progress in the region. It said Mk-48 Mod 6 advanced technology heavyweight torpedoes, which can be launched from submarine, are being provided from existing U.S. Navy stock. The move is likely to further escalate tensions between Washington and Beijing as China considers Taiwan a part of its territory. Meanwhile, China has slammed the U.S. for its decision to congratulate Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen on her inauguration. The Foreign Ministry said U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has seriously damaged the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait. U.S. President Donald Trump has again lashed out at China over the coronavirus pandemic, blaming Beijing for mass worldwide killing. In a tweet, Trump said China released a statement blaming everybody except itself for the virus, which has now killed hundreds of thousands of people. The tweet is the latest heated rhetoric from the White House, where Trump is making attacks on Beijing a centerpiece for his re-election bid. He said it was the incompetence of China and nothing else that did this mass killing worldwide. The virus first appeared in the Chinese city of Wuhan last December and spread rapidly around the world. Trump initially played down the seriousness of the threat and said repeatedly that China was addressing the outbreak. He later pivoted to blaming China for allowing the international spread. China says the United States is blackmailing the Hong Kong government with the Human Rights and Democracy Act. In a statement, Beijing said it will safeguard its sovereignty, security and development interests. The Chinese Foreign Ministry's Office of the Commissioner to Hong Kong accused Washington of interfering in China's internal matters. This comes after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo questioned the recent treatment of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. Pompeo said the recent events make it harder to assess whether the territory remains autonomous from China. We're taking a short break now, but stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. The U.S. has sanctioned Iran's Interior Minister Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli. The Treasury Department says the fresh round of sanctions targeted 9 individuals, including the minister, and 3 entities in total. In a statement, the department said Fazli authorized the law enforcement forces to use lethal force in response to protests in November. The Treasury also blacklisted 7 senior officials of the LEF and a provincial commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Meanwhile, President Hassan Rouhani said U.S. sanctions have hurt the Iranians, but they also led to self-sufficiency in many areas. State TV quoted Rouhani as saying that Tehran has become self-reliant in gasoline and diesel production. Iran has dismissed new U.S. sanctions on several Iranian officials as fruitless. In a media briefing, Foreign Office spokesperson Abbas Mousavi said these curbs point to the inefficiency of previous ones. He said Washington's repetitive sanctions against Iranian officials are a sign of weakness. The spokesperson said such steps show the despair and confusion of the U.S. administration. Yesterday, the U.S. sanctioned Iran's Interior Minister Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli. The Treasury Department said the fresh round of curbs targeted 9 individuals, including the minister, and 3 entities in total. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has said Tehran will support any nation that opposes and fights the Zionist regime of Israel. In a message, the Supreme Leader said Iran has no hesitation in declaring this. He said the comprehensive struggle by Palestinians should continue till usurpers submit to a referendum. He said the people of Palestine must determine what political system they want. Khamenei said a proposal for a referendum to choose the type of government in Palestine was registered with the UN as offered by Iran. The Supreme Leader eliminating the Zionist regime does not mean eliminating Jews, as Iran is not against Jews. The UN has told Israel to drop plans to annex parts of the occupied West Bank, joining a growing international chorus of opposition. In a UNSC meeting, envoy Nikolai Mladenov also called on Russia, US, EU and the UK to mediate. Mladenov said the continuous threat of annexation by Israel is a most serious violation of international law. He said it will be a devastating blow to the two-state solution and close the door to talks. The UN envoy said he will meet Palestine's Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh today to discuss their latest statements. Meanwhile, France has also warned Israel against annexing the West Bank and said the move will be considered a serious violation. US President Donald Trump and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron have called for urgent de-escalation in Libya. The White House said the two leaders expressed concern over foreign interference in the country. The Libyan government has been under attack by Khalifa Haftar's forces since April 2019. On Monday, forces loyal to the UN-backed government recaptured Al-Wathia air base, occupied by militias for 6 years. Experts say the capture of Al-Wathia will allow government forces to fully focus on repelling Haftar's fighters in southern Tripoli. The UN Refugee Agency has warned that internally displaced people camps in Yemen are a ticking bomb for coronavirus. UNHCR country representative Jean-Nicolas Beus said that there are over 3.6 million IDPs in those camps. Yemen has announced 184 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus and 30 deaths. But health experts believe the real number of cases is far higher given the lack of tracking and testing capabilities. The UN representative also voiced concern that migrants are being stigmatized as vectors of the virus. Beus said COVID-19 symptoms match with diseases such as dengue fever, complicating efforts to estimate the extent of the pandemic in Yemen. Ankara has slammed EU Commission's Vice President Margaritis Canes over his remarks on Turkey's failure to handle refugees. In a statement, Foreign Ministry spokesman Hami Aksoy said Skyner's remarks reflected the stance of Greece rather than that of a European Union official. He said the Commission has not launched a serious investigation into violations right at the European Union's borders. Aksoy says Skyner must first investigate the violations committed by the Greek officials. He said officials must also probe the rejection of asylum applications contrary to international treaties and the EU Asylum Directive. Aksoy said Turkey is not the bloc's refugee camp or a border guardian. In the UK, a trial to see whether two anti-malarial drugs can prevent COVID-19 has begun in Brighton and Oxford. Chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine or a placebo will be given to more than 40,000 healthcare workers from Europe, Africa, Asia and South America. All the participants are staff who are in contact with COVID-19 patients. In UK, the participants will be given hydroxychloroquine or a placebo for 3 months, while at sites in Asia, participants will be given chloroquine or a placebo. It will test whether the drugs can prevent healthcare workers exposed to the virus from contracting it. Meanwhile, Russia's biotechnology company BioCat says it will soon complete clinical trials of a drug for patients suffering from a severe form of COVID-19.
In the best case scenario, we can get the first permit for our coronavirus vaccine. I hope in late November or early December. I'm sure the first part of trials will be conducted on a limited group. After this test, the study will continue and it will include groups of patients that should additionally be included.
European stock markets have declined after Eurozone PMI data indicated another slowdown in activity for region's manufacturing and services industry in May. Investor sentiments dampened, triggering a sell-off. Frankfurt's DAX has lost over 1%. CAC 40 in Paris is trading over 1% lower. London's FTSE 100 has lost nearly 1% after British hospitality chain Whitbread plunged 14%. In Asia, Shanghai Composite closed over 0.5% lower, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng lost about 0.5%. Seoul's Kospi bucked up the trend, while Nikkei 225 lost a fraction. Oil prices have rallied again on signs of improving crude demand and a drawdown in U.S. crude inventories, but gains continue to be capped by concerns over the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. Global benchmark Brent crude settled at nearly $36 a barrel after gaining over 3%. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained nearly 5% to clock at about $33.50 a barrel. WTI's June contract expired earlier this week, avoiding the mayhem in May when prices crashed to negative $40 a barrel over storage concerns. Fuel demand has gradually ticked upwards in recent weeks as governments worldwide begin to ease lockdown.